show you something. My past. Over here is a dam that impounds what's known as the Eagle Creek Reservoir. 1969, things were pretty crazy at my house, and a fellow by the name of Ken Simpson, who had been the Waukesha Parks and Recreation Director, basically, and had come home to Indiana and was the director of the Parks and Recreation Department here at Indianapolis. It was a good time for me to be somewhere else. Let's just put it that way. Like I said, I love my dad, but 1968, 69, 70, and 71 or 2 were not the best years, okay? And I think you understand. So I came down here to Indianapolis. Came down on the train and then bus because the train broke. This is a long time ago. This is 1969. I was 17. We lied about my age, and they all knew it. I worked on the sound truck for the city of Indianapolis. Went through some things, saw some stuff. Made a lot of memories, but I was living out on Eli Lilly. It was Eli Lilly's summer home on a set of bluffs, north and west kind of part of Indianapolis. And they were making a reservoir, which then actually became the Eagle Creek Reservoir. And Lily's home, which was given to the city by the Lilly family, was a summer home. It was really cool. But I ended up sleeping. I think I was on a air mattress on the floor for the summer. But we had a guy named Craig Salmon. Craig, if you're ever out there, it'd be interesting to see. I'm now on 465, going around the bottom of Indianapolis. And I think it's probably a pretty good time to shut this off. Oh boy, I'm back in the east now. Indianapolis is an interesting town. I had a lot of adventures here at 17 years old. One was actually written up, sadly, in, I think it was Newsweek magazine. We were doing a show at the Indianapolis Indians ballpark. It was for the black community. It was all black artists, Motown. And I think, if I remember right, Smokey Robinson was there. This was a big show. And I had done a couple of other shows there. I did the Ramsey Lewis Trio, where actually I ran the board. I was 17 years old. And I don't know whether some of that was because they probably knew that Ken had helped me, or had actually just given me the job. So they knew I was kind of under his wing. But I worked hard. I learned a lot. We were an electrical crew when we weren't doing sound. And there was this old guy named Han. That was his name. And part of it was, I think, because part of his hand was gone. An old electrician. And he could make a sound like a spark that would make you water yourself. I was working at a swimming pool one day, putting in a switch. And he came up on me. He was like 62 years old. He kind of looked like Carl Malden, if you didn't know that kind of a face, with less hair. And he made that sound, and I almost watered myself. I also almost went down the stairs. But this is a tough town. we did this show at the ballpark when, unfortunately, three little black girls coming to the show were shotgunned outside. This is legend now. This is what, because I was inside, and the place exploded. It was full of people, and they were by gum pissed. As well they should have been. It wasn't by gum. I'm just trying to observe some decorum. They were very, and there was really, they came out of the stands, and we grabbed, and it was literally almost like a card table. Things were so much simpler then. Grabbed the board, which was an Altec pot type board where you turn pots, big black knobs. And we got basically forced behind the stage. We had a portable stage that we'd use. And we got forced up against, we had a Metro van that we carried our gear in. It was a good and sophisticated operation. I learned a tremendous amount. And our crew chief, a guy named Jeff Overton, you got to remember, this is 1969. We get pressed against the truck, literally surrounded. Jeff whispers to me, I'm the kid, 17 years old. And Jeff goes, I've got a 38 in the truck. If I pull it, we're all dead. And, you know, it was just one of those stressful situations when you're in a high tension situation. But we had a black guy on the crew, Tom. And Tom stood in front of us. And basically, to these enraged black folks, these are my people. You do not touch them. It is probably one of the singularly most courageous things I've ever personally seen done. He didn't have to do that. He and I became pretty close. In fact, I went over, they had me over for dinner into a part of Indianapolis that was, at that time, dirt streets. I was the only white man, I was the only white boy there. And they fed me dinner, and they were very good to me. So I have a lot of memories of Indianapolis. I have a lot of different ones, good ones and bad ones. First time I got introduced to Appalachian music was here in Indianapolis. We would do shows, and they would have like Kentucky days. Because an awful lot of folks came up out of Kentucky here to work. Very large contingent of Appalachians in Indianapolis. It's interesting. I'm now morphing back into my Appalachian self. I'm very lucky. I'm also lucky I can do it. It takes a little mental gymnastics, not to be angry at one of them, but to enjoy them both. Montana and it's like the old and the new West. Very much to me like the old and the new West. If you ever read A.B. Guthrie's The Big Sky, he brings his protagonist to Montana from like eastern Kentucky, which is what was true. The guys on the Lewis and Clark expedition, it formed north of here, and actually in Virginia. They put that together out of pretty darn good mountain people who've been extending into this country. There's a lot of history in this country of the expansion west. But I'm going to try and put my head here. I'm going to be thinking about the cabin all the time. You guys all know that. But I'm going to enjoy myself. I need a little bit of a break. I'm not as young as I used to be, but I have felt better being active. I've talked about this earlier. If you want to keep your sanity, do something. Now I'm going to be going back into my auxiliary world more. We'll just leave that where it lays. I don't talk much about it. I do some because it's a big part of my life. But service, I may write something about. Servant leadership is something that anyone who's involved in the Coast Guard, it's inculcated in us. The active duty especially. The ones who, there are people like any service who do their time. But the Coast Guard asks a whole lot more of you than just doing your time. It's truly a service. The Park Service on a much smaller level was that way for me. There's a commitment that's a little different. Anyway, I'm getting around the bottom of Indianapolis. I got to pay a little bit of attention here. So I'm going to let you go. Take care. Be well and hold fast.